let's try to finish the Perek and we'll start next week, Perek Sheni. So usually when you finish a Perek, you give yourself a little party. So for those who are not dieting, you can take a piece of cake on Shabbos. And for those who are, an extra piece of broccoli. I'll just finish a little bit because I ran through a little bit on the Mishneh Yud Zayin Perek. That's Pirkei Avos, Mishneh Yud Zayin. And I'll just say two little things about the Mishnah there, and then I'll finish with the last Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Shimon, the son of Rabbi Gamliel, says that he grew up. He says that he grew up in a place that was surrounded with Gedolim. He grew up, his father was the Nasi, and he later became the Nasi. And as I said, a person learns from what he sees at home. And a person who wants to be influenced in a way that you can live a lifestyle of that we should continue what we saw from our parents, it's important that you observe the proper etiquette as a parent and certainly as a child to look and watch and learn from each and everything. It was very interesting. In 1967, in this time of the year, in June, there was the war in Eretz Yisrael, the big major war, the War of 67. And 3 days into the war, the Jordanians entered the war, and they, because of that, even though they were warned not to enter, because they got tricked by the Egyptians, the Jordanians, they thought that they were winning. And the Jews finally were able to go into the old city of Yerushalayim after 17 years. And it's a very, very famous video and the tape of the soldiers just reaching the Kosel. And this is, for most of these soldiers, this was the first time in their lives they'd seen it, because for 17 years, a soldier typically would have been in his high teens, maybe early 20s. So he was an infant when it was given to the Jordanians. And everybody ran to the coast, all the soldiers, and they started, it was a very emotional situation. Everybody was crying. And two soldiers were sitting a little bit towards the back, and they came from kibbutzim, and they had no clue of anything. They grew up completely illiterate when it came to Judaism. And what happened was that they looked at each other, and one of them started to really cry. And the other fellow knew that he was from a kibbutz. And he tells him, "Why are you crying?" So he says, he turns to him and he says, "I'm watching everybody cry." He says, and with emotion. "And I don't know why they're crying." He says, "I'm crying because I don't know what to cry about." He says he never knew about what the Kosel was. He never knew about Kedusha. He never knew about anything. But he sees that people can get emotional about something that would be considered normally a brick wall. Of course, an impressive one, but at the end, those days actually did not look as impressive. It was covered up mostly. And yet, he didn't know what to cry. He didn't have any feelings towards it. So he grew up in a house that had no clue of what Yiddishkeit was about. And therefore, he started to cry for that alone. Somehow that neshama made him cry for that. And then there's a reverse story. The Rav of Chibin, his father was called the Kochach Miyakov. It's a big farm on Psak Halacha. It was a big Psak Halacha fellow. And his daughter, he realized that his wife came over to him that his daughter had a very bad rash on her face. So they went to the doctor, and doctor says, "Let me see what this is all about." He says, "It's a strange place for a rash." He said, because this particular rash looked a little bit different. And then he looks at the rash again and again, and he says, "This rash is coming from crying. This girl must cry a lot." So she was a young girl of about 8-9 years old, and the parents, Yaakov, look at the very happy child. We don't know what you're talking about. She never cries. So the doctor said, "Let me speak to her." And he takes her into another room, and he says, "Could you tell me what's going on? Did you cry?" And she says, "Why are you crying? You're a happy child." So she says that every single night, my father wakes up in the middle of and is learning, and then he finishes learning, and he does tiknei chatzos. He sits down and cries over the Beis Hamikdash, and it's in the room next to mine. She says he cries with such emotion that I have to cry with him. She felt it. She felt the emotion of the father. And this is a girl that grew up and will grow up for the rest of her life knowing that to cry for the loss of a Beis Hamikdash is something almost normal to her. And no question that internally she grew with Kedusha by being such a father. And that is Kol Yomai Gadalti Ben Chachamim. And I learned from them. I was quiet. I learned. I never told them that I was crying at night, but I was crying along with my father. And I didn't even know why I was crying. But if my father was crying, she said, I wanted to cry along with my father. So that is very, very key. Now to get to the next mission, to finish the mission of the Perek. And this is very interesting that this mission comes at this time to what we're living through. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel lived at the time, again, of after about 50, 60 years after the Churban. This is the third Reb Shimon. And he says, no, and right away when we started the first Mishneh, it says, that's what the Mishnah says in the beginning. But he says something else. He's talking about a physical thing. In order for this world to endure, to sustain it, it has to have din and shalom, to have law, truth, and peace. Shenema, like it says in the pasuk, it says in Zechariah, emes umishpat shalom shiftu b'sharechem. It says in there that they have the truth and peace is and judgment in your cities is what you should have. So we live in a time now, right now, that is so unbelievable. Times that nobody, you saw it coming in a way, but not to this level. That you have, there was a case in court of a homeless woman who was a little bit, had problems, had emotional problems, and she was a homeless woman. And so the city picked her up and put her into a hospital. Now, every woman is entitled, or everybody is entitled to representation. So she was taken into the hospital, and then the courts had to decide what to do with this woman. So the woman had a public defender, and the public defender was fighting for this woman to be able to be let out of the hospital. You have no right to hold her. It's America, and in America, a person can do whatever they want. And if she wants to live on the street, she has the right to live on the street. She said, but to the doctor who was a psychologist said, but this woman is emotionally challenged, and what's going to happen is that she's not going to be able to take care of herself. So the lawyer fought, and he somehow, through a technicality, with the way they processed, a processing technicality, the judge said, I'm sorry, you can't hold her. You made a mistake the way you filed the paperwork. And he found it, the lawyer. And unfortunately, we have to let her go. And so they let her go. Out of the courtroom, and she went out. On the way out, the doctor tells the lawyer, sir, can I ask you a question? He says, are you going to take care of this woman now? She says, this woman is going to harm herself. She physically cannot take care of herself, plus she harms herself. Are you going to take care of her? Says, absolutely not. So he says, but what's going to happen to this woman? He says, that's not my problem. He says, get her out of the hospital. She was being taken care of in the hospital. So he says, I'm doing my job. And that is the biggest problem we have today in society. There's no big picture. Everybody thinks that it's my job to do this. I should do. The fact that somebody got killed was 100% wrong. But the fact is, people take advantage of this, and our society is losing its peace, is losing its shalom. And this Shabbos actually is in the parsha, we speak about the Pirkei Hanan. And Pirkei Hanan is the V'rechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. Hashem should give you bracha, to give you everything you want, children and money, and Yetzer Hashem, everybody should get whatever they need. But the key part of that bracha, Yivrecha Hashem, is v'yishmerecha. Please, after you give me what you're giving me, please give me a protection that they shouldn't take away. Protect my children, protect my money. It's not having money without protection is absolutely worthless, because you don't live a relaxed life. The Nazis, they were like PETA. They used to protect the animals. They protected the dogs. They were unbelievably protective of animals. And there were incidents in concentration camps where the head of the concentration camp had a dog, and he was fed while people were being emaciated. And for sport, they used to shoot target practice at the heads of Jews to see how many they can kill with one amount of one thing of bullets, because they come in a clip. So let's say there's 10 bullets, and they go, how many people can you kill in that? It was a sport, and meanwhile the dog was taken care of. This is the society that we're unfortunately coming back to, and because we're not looking at the big picture. In fact, after the Second World War, many countries protected these Nazis, because they felt they were doing their job. They of course they knew they were doing wrong, but at the end of the day, if the officer tells you to do this, you have to follow the officer. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, this is not proper, it's not right, you have to stand up here for the right principles. Even something, a law has to have principles in itself. And that's what Rav Shimon Gamliel was saying. It has to be law, but together with law, it has to be truth. And if you have the two of them, it's ala shoman. And the bracha of Birchas Kehanim finishes, as we finish with every single bracha we have, whether it's Shemon Es, Amavorich es Amma Yisrael Shoman. And we have to look for it. And this is what we strive. You can have as much as you need, but if you have Shalom, you have nothing. There's no eternal peace, then there is no peace at all. In this week's parsha, to say one more thing, the Nazir, a Nazir is somebody who says, I don't want to drink any wine or any. He wants to be a little holier than typical. He wants to be more, do more than he's supposed to be doing. And because of that, at the end, he has to bring a carbon, because technically, if Hashem says he should do this, he shouldn't really do this. But it's very interesting how Allah Nazir. A Nazir, when his mother, if anybody in his family, Loyalenu, passes away, he's not allowed to go see that. He's not be matame. He's not to become tame. On the other hand, a kohen had there's 7 family members that he's also not allowed to walk into the cemetery, also not allowed to be tame. But for 7 family members, he is allowed to be matame himself, and that's in the time of both places. Over here it says he is allowed to, and by the Nazir it says he's not allowed to. By the kohen he's allowed to, by the Nazir not. So the question is why? Why is the Nazir? It doesn't make sense. A kohen, you would assume that he has the kedusha that Hashem gave him. He shouldn't. If he's not allowed to be matame, he shouldn't be matame at all. He shouldn't be matame. Should be able to be matame. So the difference is this. As I said before, a kohen, he's born into it. The Bnei Shalom appointed Aaron a kohen to be the kohen, and every generation after that are kohanim. The sons, by the nature of being born into that family, makes them an automatic kohen. So it's the family that makes him a kohen. It's the family that the whole situation of kahuna has to do with family. By a Nazir, he himself is taking himself out of his family. He is saying, I want to be higher than everybody else. Or if you're taking yourself out of your family, then if your family passes away, then you're not allowed to be a matama. On the other hand, a kohen is born into it. He is without a family, he can't be born. Without parents, he can't be born. So of course he has to be matama to his parents. It is the Rebbeinu Shalom set everything up with principles. Everything had to be with principles. If we don't abide by logical principles, then society can't continue. So the bracha we have of this week of Berachas Kohanim, especially being a Kohen, is Yivrech Hashem B'Yishmerecha. The Rebbeinu Shem should give us, each and every one of us, everything that we need, the type, whatever we need for good. But the Rebbeinu Shem should give us Shmira, the protection for every little thing that He gives us, that we should be able to enjoy it. We should be able to go through life with Menuchas Nefesh, Menuchas Adas, because, as we say at the end of Berachas Kohanim and Shemona Esrei, Hamavarech Es Am Yisrael, the biggest bracha on Yisrael is Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shem should hope that we get through these times, these crazy times. Every day, something new coming up, whether it's pandemic, it's rising, that we should be able to have Mavarech Es Am Yisrael. We should, the Klal Yisrael, should at least understand the right way to go, and we should all have Yisrael and have a good Shabbos.